Hi, Maurice. How are you?
I'm very good, Lydia. Nice to meet you via
You
Zoom.
too. I know, and thank you so much. And lots of us heard about you already, but I'm going to do a brief introduction for those who've just joined us and also for the recording. And then I'm going to get you to introduce yourself as well and share with us your incredible knowledge. So, just a quick introduction. Maurice O'Shaughnessy is an economist who has worked in the Commonwealth Treasury and international finance. He's currently writing a book on monetary economics, what a tongue twister, and of recent times turned his hand to educational entrepreneurship and set up Sagecool, a global learning platform. I cannot wait personally to hear about that because I am also on online learning. That's my business for homeschooling families. So this is very exciting for myself, anyone who's into homeschooling, because we have parents who homeschool who want to know more about this as well for year 11 and 12. So thank you so much for joining us and coming on and sharing your knowledge. And yes, we'll start with you telling us the things you'd like to share with us.
Okay. Thanks, Lydia. Well, this journey started about 4 years ago now. My brother, who's been in education all his life as a teacher at all sorts of schools, and now he runs a consultancy as to what school to send your children to. Most of his clients are offshore, as you'd imagine. In most of his businesses, Victoria. He came to me a few years back and he said, "What do you think of the global of this teacher shortage?" And I said, "What teacher shortage?" I mean, it just wasn't my space at all. And he had this idea to start up this online matching teachers with students, basically. And I thought that sounds like a pretty good idea. So off we went. Like a lot of these things, if I'd known what was in front of me, I never would have started. It's very similar to the treatise.
Mm,
But now we're there. And the stage it's at, and I'll get into what it is, obviously, is where obviously you never finish it, but we're now at the point where we could go to any government, pretty much anywhere in the world, and say, "Do you want to work with us and get going on it?" And probably we'd work. Obviously, we have to work initially with education departments,
mm,
and the system's been built to adjust to anything they want, basically. Now, it's if I can put on the my free market libertarian hat, well, I consider it the Trojan horse into the smashing the education system. Now, not that I'm going to tell them that. Everything in this system is built for within the system, but you could very easily, and you'll see what I mean when I get going, just do whatever you like on it.
mm,
And it's important that we're seen to be very neutral. We're an infrastructure. And so any party, any department, anybody is welcome to join it. And I always say, let the games begin, because I've got no doubt that what will happen is that the great cultural change, which is beginning to happen in education, I think you'll find that people like yourselves will really start to win out. And to that end, I've been to three online education conferences in the US in the last year, two DLC ones, one OLC one. I've been to the EduTech in Singapore. I've been
mm,
obviously to the ones here. Um, really, I wanted to get a feel for exactly what's happening globally, and the US is the epicenter of all this change.
yeah.
Uh, and it's extraordinary. It reminds me of financial markets back in the early 80s.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen an industry so ripe for change, and it is changing massively in the United States. And there's a lot of reasons for that, which I'm sure you're more aware of than I am. But I think you've got the confluence now of technology, and forget about online learning in COVID. That's like
Mm,
the Flintstones compared to what's there now.
yeah.
Uh, the so you've got technology, you've got a system which is basically a socialist system or semi-socialist, depending how you want to look at it, and it's been that way for over 100 years.
Yeah.
And then you've got the cultural issues in education, which are not representing 85, 90% of the population's cultural leanings. And so if you put all that, and you got the declining standards, however you want to measure it, right? And I'm not suggesting that this way they measure it now is the best way, but however you want to measure it, the standard. So you've got all those four things, and it's really prevalent in the United States. And then you've got the introduction of vouchers. I think there's about 9 states now where it's really starting to have an impact on choice. And of course, the homeschooling. And the fastest growing area in education in the United States right now is classical education,
Yes.
which is really interesting. I gave a speech at Campion College a few weeks back. It's extraordinary. I wish I'd been taught that way, but that's another issue.
Yeah.
So that's the background to what's happening. Maybe just before, maybe it's a good way to show you the system, is the easiest way. But just before that, if I just take you through a couple of the reports that I went through, which might mean me getting access to the. If I just press share, will that give it? Will that work?
Yes. Have you,
Um,
Just
if
tell
he's
me what.
co-host,
Hey,
be a co-host.
can I do that, Lydia?
Yep.
How do I
Yep.
do that?
You need to
maybe
become a
I think
co-host.
I just need to just.
If you press share, it should ask.
Yeah, it should ask me. I'll just get.
Yeah, just press share. And
Yeah.
then host.
I just. I'll
No.
check. I just want to get. I will do that. I'm just trying to get the Sagecool up.
Yeah.
Hang on. Let me.
Lydia, I tried to make you a co-host, but it keeps on spitting it out.
If I just press share, that should
Doesn't
work.
like me.
Oh, don't you hate this Zoom when now if I press share, here we go. That should work. That should.
Yeah,
Perfect.
it's
There we
working.
go. All right.
Worked. Beautiful.
All right. I'll just quickly go through some issues on the website. Then I'll get in and show you the system,
Yeah.
and then you'll see what I mean. What I did is I went through the Productivity Commission report, the OECD PISA report, and the UNESCO reports of the last couple of years. And I've got the reports attached there, but I summarised the main points. This is the Productivity Commission, who I nearly worked for all those years back. Their conclusions are that school productivity has declined. Improving teacher effectiveness is central to improving school outcomes. They need to rebalance the role of teachers and other school staff. School systems need to prioritize. This is really interesting. The gathering of evidence to improve school practice. They claim digital technology has the potential to be transformative, but needs to be evidence-based. And here's the interesting one. We need innovation, including variations on conventional approaches to schooling. Trials can identify worthwhile programs when supported by quality evaluation. Now, that's, I'm not sure it's hard to disagree with any of that. Then if you look at the OECD report, which is about 1,000 pages, and I'm being insane enough to go through it all, got some great stuff in there, really interesting
it is,
stuff. Basically, they're a bit more than the Productivity Commission. They're claiming that technology, remote education is already radically transforming learning. And my experience with my trips to the States would suggest that they actually say Australia should target individual students, not schools. And there's actually quite a lot of science or maths behind that conclusion. I won't go into all that, but that's quite interesting. Social diversity helps disadvantaged students. Productivity falls are a global issue, and so is a teacher shortage, and that's 100% true. It's not just a matter of spending more money. I mean, the US per capita, if you take out the oil states, obviously in the Middle East, I think it's one per capita, and it's right down the bottom in terms of results, however you want to measure it. And therefore, their big conclusion is that measurement is key. And UNESCO, same stuff. And they go into a lot more detail. Not that I'm a big friend of UNESCO, but that the whole online learning and education system has all these benefits. And a lot of the benefits are related to equity, which is and so we basically just go through and I'm going to get to the systems and you'll see what I mean. What this means for disadvantaged students is all pretty obvious. That particularly this one down here, they can access any subject of their choice. So, you could be sitting in Marble Bar and have access to every single subject, including the best teachers. You could be doing Latin if you wanted to. For teachers, we think greater remuneration, the non-teaching duties. Here's the interesting one, the greater autonomy, and you'll see what I mean when I get to the system. It didn't occur to us until we were some way through all this, that actually what we're really doing is giving the power back to the teachers or to the market. I mean, the teacher's no good, they're not going to get anyone. But so I'll go in, you'll see what I mean by some of that. For schools, I picked the worst looking school you can possibly find in Australia there. But basically it's true. If our system's in play, you'll be able to do any subject, but also find a teacher that suits your specialist needs, which is pretty important. And then for society, there's lots of benefits. One of the interesting ones here is bringing status back to teaching, I think. But this one over here, the retirees, not just former teachers, but anyone. And you'll see what I mean by this when we get to teams. So, look at our society, which is basically the baby boomers now. In many ways, we're throwing them out to pasture and they're sitting around watching the grass grow or whatever. This could radically change what it means for a lot of those people. So, look, it's probably time to, by the way, I thought I'd just throw in I get a lot of stick from my fellow colleagues on the philosophy, but I go through... Philosophia means love of wisdom. And I go through the Eastern sages and the Western sages here, but I didn't know it was this guy that actually gave the "I'll give a man a fish" statement. Anyway, it's a little bit of a sideshow there.
That's a good one.
But the point I'm trying to make in here that philosophically is that in days gone by in both the West and the East, teachers were considered highly, highly important to society. And that's just not the case anymore for all sorts of reasons. All right. So if you don't mind, I'll just try and show you the system now, which might mean if I go demo, are you seeing the demo tools page?
Yeah, okay. We got it, Michael.
All right.
Sorry.
Now, what I'm going to do is I'll spend a few minutes on it, but really I could spend 4 hours on this thing. This is seriously sophisticated under the bonnet. So I'll give you just the big overview and you'll get the big picture. Have in your mind as I go through this that on one side, say you've got 20,000 teachers on it, and on the other side, a couple of 100,000 students. And they could be anywhere. Now, we've built it really for the US, China and India, obviously, in Spanish-speaking countries, but we'll start in Australia. China will do when the Chinese Communist Party falls apart, which will be in the next few years, I think. But really the US is probably that and Australia will be our first point of call. All right, so let's say you're a teacher. We've got a teacher here. What we've done is we've created an ecosystem, I hate that word, but of hundreds of thousands of avatars, which will be students and teachers, all with certain attributes which reflect the society. So we've actually run the system live, if you like. So these are all avatars. These aren't real people. So what happens is the teacher, and the other thing to keep in mind is at this stage, the system will let you do anything. Now, no doubt each government, wherever they are in the world, is going to say, no, you can't do that, you can do this. But at the moment, this is assuming you can do whatever you like. So you put in all sorts of tags, which become important for the search, because you can imagine if you've got a few 100,000 students and tens of thousands of teachers, you're going to need a serious search capability. So they put in the tags, then the teachers put in the general information. They can put in a background video if they like. Accreditation. So this is all built for within the system. So whatever state you are, we'll just hook into the whatever government's system, and they'll be able to see that the teacher's been accredited. Any other accreditations that the teacher might have, and they can add in as many as they like. Then we'll put in the teaching experience. Once again, they can put in whatever they like, as little and as much as they like, so you can keep adding to this. Similarly, for work experience, the whatever, they can put in they worked at McDonald's if they want to, or they can leave it out. This is where it gets interesting, and you'll see when I get to the students why this matters. Types of students taught, and we've got gender, religion, primary language, secondary language, eyesight, ADHD, depression, etc. And what we've done, this could get pretty sensitive, as you can imagine. Thankfully, the Australian Bureau of Statistics has got categories for all of these things. So we've just hooked into the ABS's categories. And for the disability side of it, ADHD being pretty topical, we've used the World Health Organization categories. So these are the exact definitions that they use in the World Health Organization. And ditto for depression, which you'll see here. These are all WHO categories. So it's all pretty formal. Then you put in whether you've been an assessor, because that's pretty important to a lot of parents and schools, whether you've been an examiner, and you can throw in your resume at the end of it as well. So basically you put in everything that you want to put in. Then we've got the concept of teams. Now, think of it this way, that you can be a team of, let's say there's 3 or 4 maths teachers. We're all around the country. We find out we've got something in common. So we put ourselves up as, say, Maths Inc. Don't know if I've got any members on that one, not on that one. These are all just test ones, obviously. This team's got a couple of members. The team can be as tight or as loose as people want. It could be a franchise, so you don't know what teacher you're getting. Or it could be where 5 or 6 teachers got together on Latin, and we're going to offer Latin to everyone in Australia. And so you can imagine you're going to need a pretty good search and whatnot for this. So you can actually say, I want to join a team, and I'll search the system, and you can search by all these categories, right? So you can go and find either an educator or a class that might suit what you might want to join. So that's for you want to maybe join a team, or you can create a team, and you put in all sorts of details as to how you want that team structured. So basically, when you think of teams, and I won't go through all of this, but think of it like I might be a teacher wanting to see what teams are out there that I might want to join. I might be a teacher that goes, I want to create a team, and there's all sorts of ways you can put all sorts of rules around the team. I might want to create a team which is just a loose affiliation. We fill in for each other or something. Or I might want to create a team of like-minded teachers that teach this way, et cetera, et cetera. So it's completely up to the individuals involved. But so you can search by classes, educators, both to ask to join, or if you create a team, you'll see things like there's all sorts of flexibility here that invite only or anyone can request. There's all sorts of, there's a whole lot of levels of hierarchy there. But that is going to be extremely important in the scheme of things, I think, because when you think about it, what would you rather have as a school or a parent? One teacher teaching the maths and they put up forward their credentials, or there's a team that you actually find you quite like. And that's where the teams come into play, where you might have, say, an accountant. Let's say accounting. You might have an accountant that's been an accountant for 40 years and he's watching the grass grow. Well, he might join a team of teachers teaching accounting, and that's going to be pretty attractive to a school or a parent saying, well, this team's got someone that's been doing it for 40 years. We've got to teach. There's a million ways you could cut this. And that retired accountant might only want to do 1 class a week. So there's a whole range of things that we could start to bring back in the retirees, and to be extremely valuable, like 30, 40 years of experience in the relevant area. Although I think what will happen is they might end up like Rodney Dangerfield in that movie where he starts talking about, he's getting that lecture. He went back to uni, he's getting that lecture on how to start a business. You go, no, you've got to pay off the Teamsters, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. You might find a lot of these retirees start sitting there looking at the curriculum going, oh, not sure about that. But anyway, I'm digressing. But they're the two big categories. Measurement and feedback, we're going to have about 7 or 8 different ways of measuring. It won't be just your ATAR results. And because we're collecting data from the get-go, and you'll see what I mean about socioeconomic stuff, we'll be able to eventually produce data on outcomes adjusted for socioeconomic, intellectual ability, all sorts of things. And I don't think anyone in the world does that, not at the school level, certainly not at the teacher level. Learning enhancement technologies is something that in my trips to the States that I've been particularly interested in. It is extraordinary, and maybe later on people can ask me about what sort of things I've seen. What we want to do, well, I say to everyone, if you don't think big, you won't do big. We want to be the global hub for all they call it AI. Most of it's not AI, right? And so what's happening is there's tens of thousands of teachers around the world creating their own, using AI to create their own either lessons or class, all sorts of things. So how do we know there's not someone in a garage in Stockholm that's invented something really neat in terms of maths? How do they get that out there? How do you find out? Or if you're a teacher sitting at Timbuktu High, this is all so confusing. How do I know what to use, etc.? So you could really easily, maybe we'll have to hook up with someone to do this, create a pretty simple search system. Okay, I want to find out what maths things are out there in the world. And you'd have a whole company vetting it and all that sort of stuff. So that could be the go-to place for what's out there. Or if I've got something, let's see if I can put it up there. Relief teaching and relief bookings. When I go through the rest of the system, just think you could do exactly the same for relief teaching. So in other words, if your teacher this is for year 11 and 12 to start with, if your teacher gets sick, instead of having to take Bozo the clown who lives across the road because it's physically close, you might be able to find a sophisticated maths teacher in the Northern Territory who can fill in. And this would obviously be perfect for that. Even if you don't like online learning, you take it for the relief. And that's the other thing to point out, that when I get back to the classes and the specialties, this could be a school in year 12 who's just looking for one maths subject because I've got a maths teacher.
So can I just quickly, sorry, just for clarification. So is this specifically for schools, or is it for, how do the students connect to teachers here? Because most kids would need to be registered at a school.
Yeah.
Is this specifically for schools?
Well, we could do, it's for homeschools and schools. So it's for parents if they're doing homeschooling, or it's for schools. And I'm just going to flick back to the school now.
Yep.
We call it school admin, but think of it, you're the parent if you're a homeschooler. Because, let's say you're a homeschooler and the kid gets to year 11 and 12 and they want to do physics. Well, this would be perfect. And that's why we've got our eyes on the States, because that market alone in the US is enough to get. We obviously need critical mass for this thing to work, obviously.
Yeah.
Sorry,
one more question.
Yeah, no,
Sorry.
go for it.
So because I am very interested in what you're doing here with year 11 and 12, especially, if kids, homeschoolers were to do this, would they get results, outcomes? Or is it the same as if they were? So this is not a school, this is a hub. Yep. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Where they can find the resources and teachers and subjects that they need.
Yep.
Cool.
And it's up to the teachers in the school. They'd be doing the same exam. They're doing the year 12 subject in the curriculum. And so they've got SACs and all sorts of stuff. And if you've got homeschoolers under certain, they've got to do certain things to get their qualification, exactly the same. We're just providing the infrastructure to find a teacher that suits their needs.
So would schools use this to offer online learning to their existing students?
Yes.
Is this what this is for?
Well, it could be yes is the answer, but you could let's say like I've visited Shepparton High, which is supposedly Victoria's most underprivileged school. Well, it looks like a university, so they spent $160 million on the buildings. But
No teachers.
I said to the principals, how many kids have you got doing the highest level of maths? She goes, well, we only had 4 that wanted to, but we didn't have a maths teacher.
Okay.
So what will happen is under this system, they'll find the maths teacher and the kid goes to room 101 at 11 o'clock, and I'll show you how all that works. And there's the screen, there's kids from 15 different schools doing that maths. And so the teacher shortage gets solved by this, but in many more ways than one. Or they could be doing 2 subjects. Or if you're at some country town in Marble Bar, if you're in Marble Bar, you might do all of it online. If you're in Vietnam, you might do the Year 12 VCE, or you might do the IB through this.
Yeah.
So it's literally you could put on any curriculum you like. We've got the Australian curriculum for each state all set up, but it's no big thing to put anyone up. So now I'm in the school. This is the school admin person, but think homeschooler if you're a parent and you're homeschooling.
Yep.
So what we do, let's take Zachary here. These are all avatars. Now, this is what gets put in from the student side. Parent information. Now, this is the OECD uses exactly these definitions. So that's the parent 1 level, parent. I love the way they call it, parent 1 education level, parent 1 occupation. And so we've just taken, and Australia uses these definitions with the OECD PISA reports as well. That's really important on a couple of levels. One is when we're adjusting teacher performance for socioeconomic, but secondly also when you want to, if the government wants to favour underprivileged students, and you'll see in a minute what that means, they can use this definition. But Australia uses this, every state uses this anyway. Now we've got ability. And so the school might put in, they've got the ability to say, it's an A student, is it a B student, whatever, it's their call. Or the parent could do that. Or you could say they're a B student overall, but in, I don't know, maths. You can put up, it's any subject, and they might be an A student in, B student overall, and an A student in maths. I don't know why I didn't just press, anyway. Then you put in all the NAPLAN results, and these are all exactly as NAPLAN does it, and the NAPLAN chart. We'll skip over GAP for the minute. Then we've got what we call the WAFs and the WIFs and the WATs. These are the major international intellectual ability tests. And so what we've done, and these are the exact equivalent of each of these things. If the student does it, my brother's telling me nearly everyone he gets from overseas now, their kids have done these. So if you have a look at a sample report, they're all pretty extensive on the kids' ability. Now, these become important on a number of issues. You can see how we're matching this with the teacher might go, I'm going to teach kids who have got this certain level, either low or high or middle. But also, by the time we've got the parent information and this data, then you're really into measuring outcomes adjusted for the 2 big things, which is socioeconomic and ability. Then we've got the AEAS, which is every international student in Australia does this test to see what that they can get to certain levels before they get into schools, for English mostly, obviously. In fact, totally. Then we've got learning styles. There's a lot of controversy around learning styles. We've just used the 3 major ones. We can add more if they want the VARC, the gardeners, and the Cobes. I'm not even sure how to pronounce that. This is exactly how they do it. So you might say, look, this student's got this sort of learning style. Learning preferences, again, same thing. They can put in the sort of preference. Now we get to, you can see how we're matching this up now. Eyesight, ADHD, and again, it's the same categories we had before, only we've added in a sneaky little question here. Was this a professional diagnosis for all these ones? Because a lot of the teachers might say, I want to specialise in ADHD, but you've got to have a professional diagnosis. And so we've gone through depression, autism, etc. So, and we can add, things along the way. Eyesight's fascinating because there's a lot of technology out there now which brings this into, makes this really important. Because if you're only slightly impaired, that's not such a big deal anymore. But anyway, I'm drifting off a little bit. So the school puts in the student profile. Now let's go back. Now that you know that, let's go back to the teacher and create some classes. Basically, the teacher has a kit bag of specialties. So I can create a specialty and let's just call it, a new, I don't know, high level maths or something. Or low level, why don't we call it? Low maths. I've already got some tests in there, so I've got to be careful I'm not doubling up. So we just know what it is. Is it a team or is it a personal one? We'll just do personal for this one. Then you put in attributes. So remember we had the attributes one. So we might put in the school socio-economic. We might want to have this specialty. These are, you'd be aware maybe that the schools are all classified by the ICSEA in Australia, percentile by socio-economic. So there's one attribute. We might do another attribute, which is parent socio-economic that we did before. And we might say it's a parent who is year 9 equivalent to year 10. And we're really going to the low socio-economic thing as defined by the OECD. So there's our specialty. We've created a specialty. It's the bottom quartile of the school and it's the bottom quartile of socio-economics. So this specialty should be here. Why I've got my thing is
it's there.
It's there. It's funny in my screen. It's got this stupid. Anyway, it's there, so that's good. my screen's got this furry thing around it, which is bizarre. But anyway, all right.
Can I sorry, interrupt again.
Yeah,
because we've got a couple of comments. So just for more clarification. So we've got a couple of comments saying, so it sounds like remote learning, and how would you describe the separation? But then going further into it, someone says, in essence, it's an ecosystem for education, almost like an Airbnb for learning.
Okay.
Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Just to get an understanding.
Yep. They're both correct. We've banned the use of Airbnb because a lot of people say that. And the reason we have is because Airbnb, you're staying overnight or the one place for a couple of days. As you will see, this is a very different equation to solve, which I'm just about to get into.
Okay.
But both, and it's all online. So yeah, it's online. If you wanted to, you could, in theory, say, look, it's 2 days a week live and the rest of it online. You could do that, but most of them will be online. So the great bulk initially will be for schools that haven't got a teacher in that subject and can't get one, or it'd be for students who are mostly rural, but not necessarily, who can't do the subject because their school hasn't got a teacher. So it's both those sides. All right, so we've created the specialty. So this teacher now has a kit bag of specialties. Yep. What do you do with them? Well, let's create some classes. So we've already got this teacher's just got some classes that they've done, but let's create one and we'll just call it, I don't know, whatever, so we just know it. Let's call it New South Wales. Let's just go maths, maths standard. Now you put in, and this is where you start to see the power of the teacher. You might want to have a minimum of 10 students in your class, maximum of 20. It's up to you. You might be full-time, part-time, whatever. Obviously, if you're going to be full-time, you're probably doing 3 classes, maybe more. But let's just call it 2 for the sake of argument here. Are you a team or are you personal? Now you just go to your kit bag of specialties.
Yep.
And you just put them in. Just picking one here. Now watch what happens here. You design your class, and this is where it's very different. If you're a teacher now, you go to a school, they say, right, you're doing economics at that time, you're doing 3 of them a week, et cetera, et cetera. Now you say, okay, I've got a 2-week cycle. I want to have, say, 2. Watch what happens on the right-hand side here. This is a school year plan. At the moment, there's zeros there. So I might have 2 60-minute sessions a week. You can see that change already. And I might have 1, say, 30-minute session in my 2-week cycle. I might want the students to do their own sessions twice a week, whatever. And I might also have a class where I'm going to do, say, university style, where I want them to have watched, say, 2 60-minute videos that I've made. And you can see here on the school planner, it's telling you exactly what hours they're getting in the total year and by semester. And if you're worried about school dates, you can just change your semester. Now, keep all this in mind. What have we called this? WESSSSS. So I've saved that, and that should now, there it is. There's my class. Yep. So I'm a teacher now, and I've got all these classes. Now I'm going to do my timetable. Let's just remove all these. And I'm going to pick from my classes. And here's my SSCS. And it's dragged across exactly the structure that I put in, but only for the live classes, obviously, for your timetable. And you just can drag. So you might be a working mum, or you might have really young kids. So you might have priority 1 might be that lighter times. Priority 2 might be a completely different set of. I've got this. That thing's getting in the way. I'm just moving it. I'm just being completely random here. Priority 3. And so, but you could also mix your classes. I'm just doing this for the one class for the sake of argument, but you could do this, and then you could have priority 4 could be a completely different class because you got your kit bag of classes. But for now, it's for our WSS, whatever we called it, class. And then what will happen is the teachers should put in as many priorities as they want, because you can see what's going to happen. Our system will fill up your class to its minimum, to your highest possible priority that you've put in. So I'm published. And if you put in priority 1 at midnight, guess what? You're not going to get too many classes. You might get some overseas people, actually. So think the same thing for relief. Everything I do here, you could do for relief. Yeah. Right. So now we've got a bunch of classes. I'm nearly there. I mean, this is very high level. We're going back to the school now, or the home parent. What can happen is you might want to create a whole bunch of short lists so you don't have to, each year your school might be sitting there going, look, I'm going to need to find 3 maths classes for some kids, 2 English classes, So you can create short lists, and we just there we go. There's ours. So we can just shortlist this class to an existing shortlist, and low socioeconomic students. That's a pretty good one, I would have thought, given the way we've structured it. And now if you go back to the shortlist, view Sage classes, is there a W? Yeah, there it is. It's there. So what happens now, again, this won't look like it for this because we've got to add in the system, but you'll see what I mean. Now we're going to go, and we've done it from the teachers' perspective of their priorities. Now we're going to look at the student, and Zachary unfortunately didn't get there. Okay. So we've got this person, Angelina. I don't even know how does this system, and so there we go, view save classes, and where's our there's our WS, add preferences. Now what happens is preference one, right, which see in the grey area, they're the exact times and the priorities of that WESSSS class. So it's just dragged it over from the teacher's priorities. So I can see you've got priorities. I might go, yeah, my preference one is going to be their priority one. My and it gets a little complex here, but why don't we just add another priority? And it might be, well, let's say my second priority might be the same class. And you see, I might, now I've got a priority. My preference two is now their priority two. So priorities are teachers, preferences are schools. And you can go on and on and on and on and on. And I can mix subjects even. So I could have, these are mathematics standard, but I can put a priority three as a English class or something. Except you'll get the picture. So now what happens, and I'm just about done. Now what happens is you can imagine you've got tens of thousands of teachers who've got all their info in there, and you've got hundreds of thousands maybe of schools looking for, maybe sometimes it's one or two students, maybe 10, 15, whatever, that you want to match that student with the teacher that specialises in that student's specialty as best you can. Yeah. And so what we've done is we've developed these algorithms underneath it where, bottom line, we'll fill up the highest possible priority of the teacher's class, and from the student's perspective, they'll get the highest possible preference that gets them into the class. Now, the reason it's taken us all this time is under the bonnet, there's a million complexities. So imagine you're a popular teacher and you've got a maximum of 20 kids, 3 classes. You're going to have an overflow of preferences, preference ones. So we've got all these formulas for cascading down. We've even got an ability for the government to say we can designate what we call a designated preference. So if you've got 2 students both wanting to get into a class and it's looking like it's full, the government might say, I want the poorest students or the lower socioeconomic students to get higher priority than, say, a higher wealthy, whatever. And so the system will give that student the spot, et cetera, et cetera. And look, there's a million things underneath all that, but you're sort of getting the picture, hopefully. And what we've done is we've run a Monte Carlo simulation on all this, which I did have up before, maybe not there now.
Just before you move on, sorry, another one. Rob, I'm sure you're going to ask the question that was in the chat.
I'm just thinking that Maria and Stuart, Lydia, have all got questions, and it might be useful if we pause to let Maurice address them.
I'm pretty much done now. The only thing I was going to add, I was going to show you that chart, but I don't need to show it, is we've done the Monte Carlo simulations. So we've basically run the system thousands of times. And what we've found is that we've about 8,000 teachers and 80,000 students. About 80% of the teachers' classes get filled or up to their minimum, and nearly all of the students get put into a class that meets their specialist needs.
That's great.
So that's the sort of an indication, and we're going to run thousands and thousands of more of these simulations because we've got the population now. And so that's the sort of bones of the number. The more you've got on the system, the more granularity you can get, obviously, in terms of specialty matching. But that's about 8,000 and 80,000 is about the number we think at this stage that you'd really need to get going. So I'll leave it there and ask for...
Amazing.
That's amazing.
Well, thank you so much. And that's a lot of information, but we do have questions, which is obvious.
Lydia, do we know how to go back to Spotlight?
I think it's just a matter of stop sharing.
All right. So how do I've stuffed up here. What have I done?
You'll have to stop it, Maurice.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Stop share.
Ah, there we go. Look at that.
Amazing.
Unfortunately, you got my nugget back, but anyway.
Oh, no. Oh,
Amazing.
advanced
Thank you.
technology, Maurice. There we go. There
That's
you go,
great.
Lydia. Yep.
So that's very in depth and that's amazing. So obviously, for schools, that's really brilliant because, and for the kids, like you said before, if people get certain priorities because they're a different status to others and needs and things like that, which is great. But some of the questions we had, because we do have a lot of homeschoolers here as well. How would this work for someone who teaches organically, or is it purely mainstream learning?
Well, at the moment, we've built it within the system.
Yeah.
So as you can see, the curriculum, but it's zero adjustment to the system for someone to just go on and say, I'm just teaching this. I'm outside of VCE.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, that's what I would do. I mean, I wrote my treatise on economics. I could go on and have my own economics course. And this is actually happening in the States. What I would do is say, and then the unis would eventually learn someone who's come through my economics course is higher quality than those who are doing VCE. And so in the US, it's like there's things called you've probably heard of the World School in Arizona, and they're now getting accepted by the Ivy League. I think they've got 4 Ivy League unis taking them, and it's exactly that concept. And at the last OLC conference I was at I get so many, I get confused, Orlando, they were talking about, and they were mainly uni folks. They were talking about going forward. What's going to happen is that the prospective employee is going to present their portfolio to the employer, saying, "I've done this course, I've done that, I've done this." Not necessarily I've been to Harvard. So I think this system is within the system within the structure at the start, but from the get-go, there's nothing to stop us from someone to just say, "I'm just going to teach this." Whack me on the system. It's outside of the system.
That's good.
So
Actually, I'm going to have a question before that. Oh, sorry, who did someone say something?
yeah, I was just going to say, sorry, Lydia, getting back to what Stewie was on about. So I could actually design my own specific course, put it on the system. I could even create a course as I go along on your system and teach that to a small or a large group of people who are interested in it. It doesn't have to be predefined curriculum at all.
No,
Yeah.
but you don't have obviously the infrastructure of qualifications. But if that's not what you care about, then absolutely you could do that. And yeah.
I want to come back, Maurice, to talk about this a little bit later, but I want other people to have their questions answered. Yeah.
Yeah. So Maria asked, can you create a random class not following specifically the Australian curriculum? I guess that kind of answered the question what you answered before.
Yep.
And I think, Stuart, you're probably wondering whether you become the teacher for more of the homeschoolers. But I believe that what this is for, correct me if I'm wrong, is that as a homeschooling mum, I can jump on this and find subjects or learning areas or whatever it is for my child, find teachers to teach my child. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
It isn't the homeschooling parent that then becomes the teacher. It's us finding teachers for our kids.
Yeah. And because you might think there's certain subjects, particularly at year 11 and 12, that there's certain subjects to getting beyond your skill base. Or you might find, and this is where this is why the information on the teacher is really important. And it won't be just homeschoolers who'll be doing this. It'll be all sorts of religious and whatnot who go, I can now find the teacher that suits my values.
Yeah.
Right? So even if you're within the curriculum, you can sit there and go, this teacher is clearly in the same wavelength of how I want my kid to be taught. And they'll all start finding each other. And this system will allow them to do that.
Yeah. So, Stuart, how's that allowed? So, how it works with homeschooling is you are allowed to have tutors or teachers teach your children as long as it's under your supervision and your care. and it's still your responsibility. You just can't have them teach everything. So if you, as a homeschooler, want teacher support, you can definitely have it. You just can't put your child into a full-time school to have them taught whatever subjects, all the learning areas. You can pick and choose and do some of them.
Just related to that, Lydia, which I thought before, sorry to interrupt, but just before I forget, the other thing which I've learnt from is happening in the United States is if you go back a year, it was all asynchronous learning, that one-on-one, which is you don't really need our system to do that, like a tutor. Now they're realizing, no, it's really good for the kids to have other students in the class, not physically, just in the class. And so
Yeah.
it's moving back to synchronous, both the homeschoolers as well. And their challenge is to find the teacher and the parents where they all sit in the same philosophy.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Um, no, yes. So the question Stuart had is, so by signing up as a teaching parent, then I'm allowed to teach other kids? No. So this is about you as the parent finding a teacher for your child. You don't become the teacher for other families or other children.
Well, if you're doing the curriculum, then obviously the state's going to make sure that you're going to have to be a qualified teacher. If you're
Yeah.
teaching something outside it, well, then you're outside the system. You just be on the system as an outside. I teach
What
X.
about security then? How do
Yep.
you manage that? I just need to charge. So
Yeah, no
anyway,
worries.
I'm still listening.
All right. Security is from the get-go. I've said to our guys, I have an hour meeting with our IT guys every single day because
Wow.
I've learnt from my BlackRock days. You got to design it with them.
Yeah.
Very Japanese car manufacturing structure. I've said to them at the start, I want this to be nuclear level security if someone wants that. And
Yeah.
it does matter a lot. And so we haven't actually built all the security in, but we've built the infrastructure that we can do any security. And the reason why we've done that, because every single state and every single country is going to have a different criteria for us to abide by. So we're going to go to the governments and say, you tell us what security you want, but we can do anything. And so it's been built to go to any sort of security that any government or other body tells us to do. And I think what will happen in time is there'll be global standards, and we'll meet them all.
Yeah, so because there is assessments and stuff like and criteria, obviously working with children and all the things that for security reasons you would need if a child is
Oh,
going to be online.
yeah, that bit is the teachers are already accredited by the
Yeah. So
state.
you'll definitely have all their details, their credentials.
Yeah, I mean, you
For
don't
sure.
get on as an accredited teacher unless you check that. I mean, we just took straight into the government's system.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
exactly the same way when a school hires a teachers now. There's no difference.
Hmm.
They say, "Where's your accreditation?" Da, 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 da. And so that, in many ways, and it's really it. Most of the people will be schools, not homeschoolers at the start, at least. Um, they'll be, we get this question a lot. Well, what does the school currently do when they hire a teacher?
Yeah.
And they'll be doing the same thing. Only in this case, you're probably going to have one teacher's going to be teaching kids from 15 different schools. So we might need to have some separate body to go, yeah, we've checked all their things. They are state credited and et cetera, et cetera. But
Yeah.
it's extremely important, but it's something that's very easy for us to abide by whatever anyone wants.
Yeah. Amazing. Jared, and you've got a question?
Uh, yeah, it's very interesting. Thanks, Maurice. It's extremely interesting. I texted Roberts, it's like a dream come true. Um, but yeah, I've got a few questions. Have you spoken to the classical educationalists in USA and what do they think of it and would they use it? That's one. Will I keep going? I think you talk a bit about accreditation and whether you're inside the system or outside the system. I'm a very pro homeschooler, and I think basically, I think everyone should be homeschooling. If I was the education
Mm.
minister, I'd just ban primary schools for a start, just
Yeah,
close them all
yeah.
down. Um, of course, that's just unrealistic. But so we don't care about the accreditation system. All the kids I know have not gone to uni or gone to uni, but not gone to VCE or HSC or anything else or the other one. We just bypass it completely. And sort of even 20 years ago, my son belonged to a robotics club here in Melbourne, and they built decent machines and so on, won competitions, went to the USA and stuff like that. And Deakin Uni down past Werribee somewhere down there, they knew about all the homeschoolers and they had open days for homeschoolers. And they chose homeschoolers over, um, school kids who got high marks any day because they think so differently and all
Yeah.
that. So, I mean, I'm interested in the side of it that isn't anything about the accreditation. So you've got George, who's a builder, says, well, I'm a builder and I'd like to teach a few kids building or whatever. And I haven't got anything. I'll get working with children if you like. And here I am. And this is my philosophy. And a few people will go, yeah, we like the look of George. And that's it. And I just think that could just, well, for you, you're looking at, thousands and thousands of numbers of people in schools and in all the countries. But sort of just my little vision is Melbourne or Victoria, Australia. Um, I can see it working, yeah, with homeschoolers and just with people just choosing. I think Lydia's good at cooking. I'll let my kids spend half an hour online with Lydia or something
Mm.
like that.
I'm a
Very,
terrible cook.
very organic. Yeah, yeah. And I've got one more question to Stuart. Are you a homeschooler?
Stuart? Yeah.
Stewie.
Yeah, sorry, I'm looking for me thing.
Unmute.
Yes, I am.
Stewie, you had quite a few questions.
I got a couple to answer there. First, if that's all right. You asked
Yes,
about
please.
classical education. As I said in my introduction, that it's the fastest growing education sector in the United States. I've actually gotten very close to the classical education people here in Australia. I actually gave a speech at Campion College a few weeks back, which I should put up on my LinkedIn. And I went up to the opening of the Newman College, the Newman Primary School up in Brisbane, that James Powell opened a few weeks back. And so I've gotten, and I've starting to make some. Well, I've actually got a dinner on in a couple of weeks with some bishop that's out from America. So I'm actually got some pretty big feelers getting in there now on the classical because, in my mind, is that alone is big enough to get the critical mass. So when we only really need to get into one subsector, and Australia's probably too small, then everyone else can just jump on. And I think the classicals are a really good starting point. Like, it's now growing exponentially in Latin America and in Brazil. It's the fastest growing sector in Brazil. So the problem the classical education people have got is teachers, because everyone's growing up in the old structure. There's a massive demand for it, but you haven't got teachers that can teach it. This could solve the problem.
It could. It could.
Or
There are
help
a lot
solve it.
of
Help solve it.
a lot of homeschoolers have been doing classical education since the 90s or probably before that I don't know of. But yeah, but it's a tiny scale compared with what you're saying. Yeah, there are no real teachers doing classical. We're trying to get a classical education primary school started here in Victoria, and it's nearly impossible. It's
Well,
very hard.
because I think
Yeah.
what you could do, again, we're focused on 11 and 12 at this stage for reasons that for online learning, if you've gotten that far, you have less behavioural issues because we're talking about the mass population here. But you could actually, if you look at the design of the classes, there is no reason why. I've heard some really inspirational classical teachers thinking, well, why wouldn't they record their series, their lecture series, then have almost like classical tutors that are teaching the online. There's a million ways you could cut this to help get over the shortage of classical education teachers. In fact, you could use it to train the teachers themselves. So there's other ways of doing that. And I think the second part of your question related to, just before I do that, we are talking to the rural education, whatever they call themselves in America. We've basically done this with the CEO of that, and she was just like mind-boggled. She was just, her eyes were popping out of her head saying, well, this could solve the rural teacher shortage in the United States. You could have someone in Anchorage, Alaska, I love using that example, anchor down in Anchorage, being taught by someone in LA who matches that specialty, et cetera, et cetera. So there's the possibilities are huge. But if you're outside the system, our system's built within the system, because that's where 95, 8, whatever percent of people are. But if you think about it enough, you can see how this could dramatically start to reshape people. Think about it this way. I might have a student at year 12, and all of a sudden I might go to the school and say, who's your year 12 maths teacher? Because I've had a look at this online thing. They've got, this teacher here, unbelievable results. Oh, all of a sudden so you can start to change it from the school, and then the teacher at the school could go, well, I can make more money doing this. Why don't you let me do at least one class? You can see in time it really starting to fracture, and that'd be a good thing in my view. Anyway,
Actually, sorry, I forgot that you said it was a Trojan horse, and I think that's your biggest gold mine there. For me, I just hate the system so much. But yeah, Trojan horse is good. And also the libertarian sort of philosophy, doesn't this fit that the economics of it, like the market will determine. I mean, if you had a kind of a free market in education, who would go and sit in a classroom with peers day and night for 12 years? I mean, well, not night, but who would do that? I find it very strange, the whole
this
system.
won't solve the hands-on, we've got to build a house and that sort of stuff. But one area I didn't mention, which is really important, I was a science person myself, and there is software online now that you can use that is infinitely better than being in the lab at school. Things
Yeah.
like Praxi Labs, where you can put the green powder on the blue powder and blow up the lab. The teacher can see absolutely everything you're doing. You can split DNA. You can do it. What you can do in a real lab is just a fraction of what you can do with this stuff. And so, again, to use the Marble Bar experience, the kid in Marble Bar could have access to much more scientific capability, if you like, than the kid in school. And here's where I'm really drifting now, but here's my really big idea. And in a couple of years' time, I want to go to Elon Musk and say, this is the old, if you don't think big, you won't do big, and say, why don't you provide free Starlink? And after his last raise, he's got enough money for all the extremely poor inverted commas schools in Africa and the rest of the developing world. Because what is it that these kids are lacking? Well, everyone's given them computers, right? They can go to a grass hut and they could have a screen. All of a sudden, if they've got Starlink, they could have someone in Melbourne. I could be sitting in this office teaching kids English in the Sudan, and I could be measuring it. So, it's not a feel-good thing. If you're good at it, and etc.
Right.
The mind boggles at what you can do once you've got access to high-speed internet and teachers.
Yeah.
And measurement. Don't forget the measurement.
Amazing. We've got Maria asking, what economic trends do you believe today's children will inherit that most parents are not preparing them for?
Oh, that's off topic, but it's sort of my main topic.
Yeah.
Look, how long have you got? I actually think that the world's financial system is going to collapse at some point. I don't know when. Could be years and years, or it could be months. And out of that will come a new monetary system globally, which is why I'm writing my treatise. How do you get ready for that? Well, you don't know. It's like I compare it to a shaky sandcastle. You don't know what grain of sand's going to cause the collapse, and once it starts, you don't know what the cascades are going to be. But you know the sandcastle's shaky. Look, the only thing you say you own real assets, but you
Yeah.
see, even the stock market's a real asset. Depends on what price. So it's a very very big question, probably the subject of a completely different, more related to my treatise than this. But one thing I can say is I believe we're going to have a major fracture in the world's financial system, and where it goes from there, who knows? But that's one of the major reasons I'm writing my treatise is I want to be part of the global debate uh, in terms of what we should do. I'm not saying they will
Yeah.
do it, but in terms of what they should do.
Mm.
Awesome. Rob, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I did. Let me think. All right, Maurice, what you were saying about competing curriculum. So let's say we go back to the example you gave of your economics course, okay? So we have Maurice's economics course, and then the people at Melbourne University look at that course and they say that's better than VCE economics, okay? So they're happy to take students who've done that course. This strikes me as a very libertarian solution to a problem we had when we were looking at policy, and that's tertiary selection. Because at the moment, at the present point in time, the states basically certifies which courses can be used for university selection. Whereas if we devolve choice to the institutions concerned, then they could look at the courses and the standards and they could arrive at their own determinations. Or alternatively, they might set their own exams. So what I want to know is, what do you think about what's the best libertarian way to select students for, say, Melbourne economics or Melbourne science or whatever?
Yeah, well, I think uh, have competing curriculum for starters, but
Yeah.
I also blow up the whole university system as well. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, my whole treatise is about how economics is completely wrong, and I could get into the sciences as well and
Yeah.
go a fair way down that track. Um, uh, the and both of them stem from the same problem. They're government funded,
That's right. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
uh, and how do you change that in a big way? Our system could be used just as much for universities as it is for year 11 and 12.
Yeah.
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 And but at the end of the day, it all gets back to where's the money come from.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think initially you got to operate within the system, because we're going to have massive pushback. Can you imagine a lot of the education departments and whatnot, whether it's tertiary or secondary, because a lot of people are going to see it under threat, because the more you think about it, the more it could fracture things a lot.
Mm.
And so we'll get a lot of pushback, maybe to the extent that we'll have to start in the States and not here. We don't know. But I think the libertarian philosophy of a free market in it, I'm not sure how you do that where you've got the governments determining the 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 money side of it. So it's the equivalent of when I go and buy a car, I choose the car
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's my money. When I
Mm.
go to the university, my kids go to uni, well, they sort of have to go through this infrastructure, and the government, they pay for some of it, but the government pays for a lot of it. So you're separating the ultimate consumer from the product.
Mm.
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 And as soon as you do that, you're going to get massive inefficiencies, political bureaucracy, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm.
And let's say once you've got that system, besides it just collapsing on itself almost
Yeah.
overnight, which
Yeah.
wouldn't be a bad thing,
Yeah.
how do you change it from within? And
Mm.
that's, and I think the beauty of the United States at the moment is that in some states it's gotten so bad that it has collapsed on itself.
Mm.
And like I had one of those conferences I wish I'd taken the name of the state. The equivalent of the head of the Department of Education got up, and they're all lefties, right? Every
Mm.
single one of them. But they're nice people.
Mm.
She gets up and she says, by the year 2030, she expects state enrolments in her state to have fallen by 50%.
Wow.
And I'm thinking that can't be right, right? But even if it's 20 or 30%, that's enough to collapse the infrastructure. So maybe we are at a point where the system is collapsing in on itself because the outcomes, the parents are unhappy with the outcomes are terrible. The money is ginormous in terms of what we're spending. And you've separated the consumer from the product, from the purchasing decision of the
But hang
product.
on, but industry, they choose the people that get the jobs. And we don't want kids from that university. We want kids who have studied under Maurice O'Shaughnessy, you know? I mean, it works itself out. So
Well, it will accept, I think you're right, but the timeline, which is what I'm hoping this system can do, but the timeline is such that at the moment, I know when I was employing people, it's a passport, right? Oh, they went to Harvard. Oh, yeah, you must be good. Now, less so now. I wouldn't think that now of Harvard, actually. But in many ways, it was just this passport that the kids got that got them the job, and then you're off and running. Whether they learn anything is a completely different thing. Now, the sciences were a bit different, but even that, subject to that. So I don't know. Look, the libertarian perspective of giving, the only way the libertarian thing works is the money to buy the product has to come from the parent. Either through the government giving the parent the money or the parent just paying for it themselves. And that's a completely different system to what we've got now. And do you blow it up from within? Maybe. But in the States, don't underestimate the influence that vouchers are having in the US, particularly they're making sure that they're all means tested and giving to the poorer areas. So now you can, and it's having an impact. So I don't know. I'm rambling a bit, but I don't know whether the thing collapses overnight and we get going on something better, or whether you can start to change it within, and then you hit an inflection point. Like, yeah, if you imagine this system really taking off, there will come the point where the parent goes to the school and goes, "Who's teaching Year 12 maths? Because I've just been online, they're measuring this, and they've got some guru out there. Why don't we get him or her?"
That's right.
Yeah. And the thing is, more families are getting involved, and that's why homeschooling, for instance, is growing. It's growing because of the fact that the system is failing. It's falling, it's failing. The parents are taking kids out. Kids cannot survive there anymore. So something like what you're doing.
What do you do as the homeschoolers when the kids get to, say, year 11 and 12 and they want to do high level physics or something,
Yeah,
and it's
so
not
there's
your
a
cup of
few.
tea?
Yeah, so that's the thing. This is great for homeschoolers for year 11 and 12 because there are options, but not that many. So a lot of kids, if they want to do things like that, they'll go do distance education. If they don't want to go back to school, others will do courses, whether it's certificate 3, 4 diplomas through TAFE to get accreditation, to use those credits to get into university. So to have other options is great. It does work, what's happening now, but there are a lot of year 11 and 12 kids that are like, but I want to be a
doctor.
scientist, a doctor. I want to be a brain surgeon, so they need to have the opportunities to get into that. So that's great. So for homeschoolers, something like this, not talking mainstream, which is great for them too, but for homeschoolers specifically, something like this is wonderful.
It does open the doors, but I have to say, homeschoolers for many years have been going to uni
Yeah,
without doing
absolutely.
BCE or just
Yeah.
going to high school for 2 years, the last 2 years. And another thing, Maurice, already homeschooling's growing exponentially, as you know, and already we don't get any government funding for it. The mums may stay home, you may sacrifice a whole salary. So whether it's paid for or not by the government, we're doing it because we can't help it because we cannot cope in school. The children can't. When I did it, there was no problem. I just never sent them in the first place because it was in the early 90s. But now I meet so many people who They have to take the kids out because of bullying and self-harming and lots of issues and not learning. And plus the curriculum now since 2016 has gone mental. And it's not only the LGBT side of it. The maths and English is chaos. If you saw the maths, I'm a primary school teacher. If you saw the maths they teach there, you go, why don't they just teach them clearly? They make it chaotic. And anyway, so yeah,
But what
but
do the homeschoolers say when people say, well, what about socialising the kids? I'm sure you've got answers to that.
yeah, we do,
Yes.
we do,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't answer it now, but I can tell you hundreds of stories of great stories of homeschool kid outcome. I'll just tell you what she did online uni as you can. You know how you do open university. Since she was 12, 13, 14, she was clever. She was studious, did it all. And then just did, I don't know, 1 year, a half year of what she had to do in a practical sense to become a teacher. That's all.
Yeah.
And
And look,
she's,
and there's a lot of co-ops out there when it comes to socializing and things like that. And then there's businesses like starting to pop up like ours where we do online learning as well, but we have tutors who are supporting specifically for homeschoolers. So it's very much like learning at home, but it is not the same as a school. It doesn't have the same criteria as a school would. It is a lot more flexible and based on the child and the family's way of doing things. So socially, there is an abundance of opportunities for homeschooling
Yeah.
kids.
My answer to that is, and I don't know, but it's just an intuition is, well, human beings are social animals. We worked it out before there were schools. So
Yeah.
I'm sure there's plenty of options
Yeah,
there. And if you look
absolutely.
at the States, there's a million things they're doing. The other thing from the teachers' side of it is that I think 65% of teachers in Australia and America as well are women. And so you can imagine a situation like we've got one of our teachers who's going to end up as the face of Sagecool rather than me, obviously. That let's say you've got a couple of kids and they're young and, you've got to go to school to teach. They could end up just going around to each other's places, having their own creche, if you like, while they're teaching, right?
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
year 11. There's a million permutations and combinations of how this can create incredible flexibility for the teachers, particularly the women who have got children and
Yeah,
want to
absolutely.
want to adjust their lives around that.
I don't
Maurice,
think
the
you'll
real,
have any issues with teachers because teachers
yeah,
don't want to be in school anymore. So
Maurice, the
for
real
them to be able to
question.
do this is great.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Lydia. The real question is how on earth do children get socialized when they're stuck in school all day for 12 years with peers and one adult? It's the real quick. The homeschool kids are just miles ahead. They look you in the eye, they shake your hand. I know young ones who have had businesses for years. A friend of mine just planted 2 ton of ginger. He's a teenager, planted 2 ton of ginger, and he's going to harvest it for about 70,000. And
Wow.
I mean, the flexibility when you homeschool, you can do anything. You can go and work on the snowfields, or you can, yeah, plant ginger. The question is, how do you socialize in school? They do not socialize properly. They learn a lot of bad things.
Did I see a question up there about the legal system allowing it?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
So
that's that's a good question.
it is because, for instance, our business was targeted by the VRQA and they tried to shut us down. Not because we were doing anything wrong, but because they didn't like the amount of support we're giving homeschooling families, because more homeschooling families are dropping out, families dropping out and starting to homeschool. And if more businesses like ours pop up, there's going to be more and more support for homeschoolers, which will become a direct competition to the mainstream schooling system. Eventually down the track, if it keeps happening the way it's going now. So yeah, it is a great question because they will definitely try to
Oh yeah,
change laws and
we've had that a lot, and we spoke. I won't say who it was, but it was someone. Um, let's put it this way: someone, if they got elected, would be an education minister, maybe. I'm not saying what state or what federal. And this person looked at me and said, "Oh, but what about all the regulations and that?" And I felt like saying, "Mate, you'd be the minister. Change them."
yeah.
Uh, But look, we get that a lot. Oh, well, it's the old Rodney, don't you're gonna come up against this,
Yeah.
and there's no question we're going to come up against that. My answer is there's not that many regulations you need to change, but yeah, we'll come up against the roadblocks. Secondly, the teacher shortage situation is so desperate. Right? This is DEFCON 1 that even those who would normally fight like hell against something like this, if it gets enough publicity and whatnot out there, they're going to say, bloody hell, this could really make a difference to help solving the teacher shortage.
Definitely.
It's not going to, that doesn't mean we're not going to have all the roadblocks, which we will. But I think if it wasn't DEFCON 1, we'd really be pushing it uphill. But the problem is so severe everywhere that hopefully, and maybe it's just me being optimistic, we'll manage to crash through. We only need one state. That's it. Because once it happens in one state, then you're off and running. But look, if Australia says no, we're ready to go in the States. And that won't be a problem at all.
Yeah. The States definitely has more opportunities for stuff like that. That's for sure. That's definitely for sure. Australia is quite, yeah, it's difficult. It's one of the things that you're like, oh, but in your situation, that's great. Even Singapore is probably pretty good for something like that too.
Yeah, and well, so we could do the IB,
Yeah.
which is global. So there's a number of when we talk about US strategy, we talk about horizontal, which is homeschoolers, classical education, rural, or we talk vertical when you just go to one state, which is the size of Australia, like Florida, Texas, Arizona, or maybe both. And it's almost like once you're there, we only need one area to work in, and then it's not like you've got to build a new factory to go to a new state or new. It's
right,
all there.
That's right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Lee had a question, Lydia.
Oh, yes. Let me just open that up. Where is it? Are you getting much publicity in MSM?
Funnily, you should say that. We hopefully have an article coming out in nationally in News Corp any tick of the clock, and it should be a positive one. It won't feature me because I'm Dr. Evil from the financial markets. It'll probably feature my brother, who's an education person, and hopefully this lady that's, the mum story, if you like. So hopefully we'll get that. We did go and visit. This is all Chatham House from here. The other mob, and it was all very civil, but nothing. And I suspect, it's really funny. I said to my brother, I wonder if they've looked me up and saw I was ex-IPA or something. And but I also suspect they are the establishment now.
That's right. The lefties are.
They are. The Fairfax is the establishment.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
So if we're perceived as threatening the establishment, that's not great. Whereas, I mean, the rest of the mainstream is not much better, but they're a little better. So look, hopefully there's an article coming out soon, because we've had quite a few, where you send things off and, people just don't answer your calls. I'm used to being in an industry where if someone's got an idea that looks interesting, we didn't care if it was the window cleaner. Right? You'd have a look at it and do it if it made sense. This industry, it's just so sleepy. It's extraordinary. And for every 10 calls we make, one might answer. But if we can get a bit of publicity, we know the product we've got. So that's the thing I say to our folks. There's not many of us. So just keep going. You only need to hit it once. Doesn't matter if it takes us another year, because we know what we've got.
Yeah.
And so the water will eventually run downhill, I think.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was brilliant. That was great. And I'm sure there's a lot more that we could get from you and hear from you. And it looks like it's very intricate.
Lydia, where can we read your article, Maurice?
All right. If you go to Substack and
I'll
look up
post. I can post your. Is it on your blog or?
it's. I'll just resend you my very original one.
Yeah, just send it and I'll post it to
and
all
then all
members.
people have to do is
Yeah.
you sign up to Substack, that's free, and then you put your email in on mine, and that's free as well. And then you'll see I've done 60, you'll get access to them, and then you should get them every week. Look, they can really vary from, sometimes I'm talking about current events. I've written 4 on Iran. Sometimes I'll talk about ancient China, like last week. Sometimes I'll talk about the American Revolution. I just depends what mood I'm in.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Was
Yeah.
there any other questions before we let Maurice go?
I just want to say thanks a lot, Maurice. That's a very interesting talk. As somebody who was in schools, I can tell you now that that sort of platform that works the way that you've designed it, because it's curriculum and ideologically agnostic, would be very popular with us. What would, just so you know, if you're talking to some dope from the bureaucracy, that we regularly used to have, we would often have, say, 2 or 3 kids who were really good at maths who wanted to do specialist maths. And we had very good specialist maths teachers, but not enough to make a class. So one of them would tutor them, and they would do it through the online service at Victoria, distance education, and they are hopeless.
Yeah,
Those-
been told that, yeah.
yeah, they're absolutely dreadful. So so your service would be vastly superior.
Yeah, because you get to choose your teacher.
Yeah, and you can choose teachers, you can see their qualifications, and in particular, you can choose the sort of style of teacher which suits your children. Some teachers like, we won't bother about that. There's all different criteria. So it's really useful. Yeah. So thanks very much for today. It's terrific.
No, thanks, folks. And it's
Thank you.
I said to my family, I said, I think I'm going to have a friendly audience here, which is nice because we're going to come up against unfriendly audiences a lot in the next year.
No, Maurice, no, make no mistake. You got supporters here. Libertarians will back you. Yeah. Stuart was putting that in the chat. If we have to get cudgels and shotguns, we'll be there.
Can I ask, Maurice, when you first sort of had the inklings of the idea?
Yeah, it was my brother, as I said at the very start, that he came up to me, it was 4 years ago now, and he just said, what do you think of the teacher shortage? And I said, what teacher shortage? I don't know nothing about it. But funnily enough, it's a very good question because a good friend of mine, Peter Cooper, is in funds management now. We used to work together. 20 years ago, we used to sit there and just talk on the side about how stuffed the education system is, mainly at universities in those days, and how it's ripe for change. So my brother had the idea, but it was sort of, he was talking to someone that was very open to it. But as I said, if I'd known what was required, I probably wouldn't have done it. Like what I've described there is sort of the big picture, that under the bonnet, trying to match those timetables with preferences and the rules and all that, and even the relief teaching. As I say, it's every single day for about an hour. I talk with, we only got 2 IT guys and we're designing it as we go. It's extraordinarily complex, but hopefully as a user, it's not too bad.
Yeah,
Lydia,
amazing. I think it looks great.
Maurice, I'm somebody who used to be a timetabler in a school that had 3 sub-schools and with a VCE timetable across the top. So I can tell you now that our school timetable busted every commercial program on the market. We had to do it by hand, but there was only one timetabling package. So I know how complex it is. There's one timetabling package that was written by 2 teachers from Brunswick Secondary College that would cope with what you're doing. It's the only one. It's really involved. So that even the timetabling achievement's very impressive.
Yeah, there's one, just before I go, there's one thing I didn't, just on the learning enhancement technology, I could go on for as long again on the stuff that's out there. And some of it's frightening, some of it's exciting, but they've got technology now, and some people I'm not even sure what to think of it, but you might have your 20 kids on your screen, in the little squares, and it'll come up and tell the teacher, student number 5 didn't understand what you just said because it can read the
Wow.
eyes and the emotions. Or the teacher can stop the class for 2 minutes and go, we're doing this multiple choice question. So it's not embarrassing for the kids. And then they can see which are the ones that are getting it as they go. And then the kids can also type in the questions and not be embarrassed because it's anonymous. The technology now, particularly in the science side online, but also humanities, is extraordinary. And you can either use it or not use it. And I think what's happening is the technology is here, right over there. The leading edge teachers are sort of there. The great mass of people are over there in terms of the teachers.
Yeah.
And so it's in play is the way I see it. Some of the technology is frightening. Some people get scared and say, what, you mean that camera can read the kids' emotions and it's pretty accurate? They've got AI now that you've done your class and at the end of your class, the AI will come up with, well, here's some suggestions. And it's based on, it's actually not bad. And it'll be even better. And it's changing so rapidly. Like in another year, it'll be more sophisticated and whatnot. So whether you like, and I say to people who, like a lot of the classical folks don't like, I say like, hey, we're talking year 11 and 12 here. I say, be careful of throwing the baby out with the bathwater when it
Yeah.
comes to technology. I said, and a lot of them are Christians. And I say that, well, if you think about it, the Christians used the Roman roads. Right? And I said, this is similar. But I see where you're coming from, particularly for primary kids. But
Yeah.
once you're in 11 and 12, there's stuff out there, particularly in the sciences and the maths and that can really enhance their thing. But it's so in flux at the moment, that whole technology. That's why I keep going to these conferences, because it's just fascinating to watch. We're agnostic, of course. We're agnostic on all this stuff. But it's coming to a picture theatre near us, whether you like it or not. Yeah.
Yeah. We had last week we had Carl's jump
Carly.
on.
Yeah, Carly.
Yeah,
So
she was talking about
yeah,
AI.
yeah.
It's coming. It's there, and it's going to keep
But
coming.
even
So,
like a couple of these in the States, a couple of these universities are now in their subjects, you have to use, they've got the 3 categories where you're not allowed to use it in some subject, and somewhere you use it a bit, and others where to write this essay, you have to use it, but you have to actually show the questions you've asked the AI. You have to use a couple of them, and then you have to critique what they've done.
I like that. Yeah.
And what they were saying, it said it's extraordinary. You're actually finding the students having to think more than in the old days where they had to write the essay themselves.
wow.
Because they're getting access to a lot of source information really quickly, but to critique what the AI has done, and there's ways of making sure that you're not using AI to do that critique, a la you're online and we're watching you do it, right?
Yeah.
Uh, uh, and there's quite a few other examples of all that, and it got me thinking that it's like, what do you do for socialization? Well, human beings are creative by nature, and they will learn how to use it. Not always, but in most cases, I think, how to use it in a way to help students think. And that was literally all of them are now starting to talk in terms of you got this massive access to information, and it's like a big filing cabinet and all the rest of it. But we can use it now to enhance human thinking, not the other way around.
That's right.
Now, it's very early stages, but there's some really interesting examples like that one where you go, yeah, that'd be pretty neat. It certainly had me thinking, having to
Yeah.
critique what the AI's done, and I got to show them the questions I've asked it.
Yeah. No, it's a good
Yeah.
idea. Yeah.
Anyway, that's just one sort of sideshow, but part of what we're doing is to have that whole, what we call the LET. They like the terminology, by the way. It's nicer than AI, the learning enhancement technology. That I'll guarantee you, there are thousands and thousands of people around the world, teachers, creating really innovative stuff using this technology.
Yeah.
How do we know that it exists? And how do you know what the best ones are? And there's no infrastructure yet to handle all that.
Yeah.
Very
Look,
true.
I'm going to shut up. Yeah. Very,
Yes.
very interesting, Maurice. When it first came out, when computers first came out, there was an explosion right along this lines of how could you use it in the classroom, and there were lots of great ideas, But
Yeah.
it's another topic.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
I agree. The primary is very different to secondary.
yeah,
Yeah.
Very different.
yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you again.
Thank you.
You spent a lot of time with us, so we're very grateful for
Thanks
that.
Yeah.
very much, Maurice. Yeah,
Nice to meet you all by
Really
video.
appreciate it.
Okay.
Yes, you too.
yeah.
Hopefully we'll meet in person one day.
Yeah. Are
Would
you
love to
based
read
in
some
Melbourne?
stuff.
Is everyone here from Melbourne or?
Yeah, most people
Yeah,
are,
yeah.
except we've got quite a few people from the country, and we do have people who drop in from New South Wales, Maurice. And I'll put you on our mailing list, so you're welcome to drop in any time.
Okay. Terrific.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Amazing.
folks.
Thanks, Maurice. Thank you. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Have a good
Thank
night.
you, Morris. Thanks everyone for
Bye-bye.
coming.
Thanks for coming,
See you
everybody.
guys.